Yes, all right, we are rolling once again here on the Hop Light channel. I, again, of course, am your host, Hop. And you are here because you clicked on the video to see Norse Lit, the Saga of the Volsungs, Part 3. So we are now in the third part of the four-part series for the Saga of the Volsungs. If you've come to this video after watching parts 1 and 2, I appreciate it. Hope you've enjoyed it so far. The readings, they've been a little longer, about I think hour per video. This one will be no exception. But yeah, I appreciate everybody coming back to see part 3. Do hope you've enjoyed parts 1 and 2. And we are going to get right into it for this video. The part 2 that we finished for the last segment, if you recall, we were introduced to the dragon Fafnir, and we also found out about Sigurd's role in the death of Fafnir, the killing of his foster father Regin, and the curse of gold that now will take over Sigurd's fate for the remainder of this saga, and how it comes into play with the different people and the different circumstances he will find himself in. Speaking of which, we'll talk about that here really quick. So we introduce to a whole new cast of characters for this segment in this, I guess you would say, second half of Sigurd's life, because in the first half we covered pretty much his adolescence and his childhood, into becoming a man, into avenging his father Sigmund, and vanquishing Fafnir, and taking his hoard of gold. So for this segment, we introduced to the following characters. Of course, we have Sigurd, right? And then we're introduced to the love interest Brynhild. And if you recall from the first part I did in the Saga of the Volsungs, talking about the history of it, you remember Richard Wagner's Ring of the Nibelung. Brynhild, or Brunhilda, is that that character in that opera, in that saga, and she I guess gives the love interest side of this saga, but it's not quite the traditional, like, Romeo and Juliet love interest romantic story that we're used to in English literature tradition. And we find out that Gudrun is part of this love triangle that we'll read about here in a minute. But we find that Sigurd and Brynhild have a daughter, Aslog. And if you're a fan of the TV show Vikings, I'm not sure if that's still on TV. I watched the first 3 seasons, then it kind of went off the rails after Ragnar died. I didn't really feel like keeping up with it. But you're introduced to Queen Aslog in that TV series, and she identifies herself as a descendant of a very famous and royal line, and this would be the line of Sigurd and Brynhild. So yeah, she essentially is introduced into the series, and it adds more of the mythology to the story of perhaps the actual story of Ragnar Lothbrok. But in any event, that's who Aslog was. But we also meet Heimir, Gunnar, Atli, who, believe it or not, is actually taken from the historical king of the Huns, Attila. So Atli appears in the story, and he's meant to represent the actual king of the Huns, Attila. Why Attila would be this far north, anywhere near Iceland or Scandinavia, doesn't matter. They just figured, well, we'll work him into the story because he had such a profound impact upon European history. Everybody knew who he was. It was like Genghis Khan, Attila the Hun. He was the scourge of God. So we find Atli in this story. And then we have Hogni as well. So yeah, these will be our new cast of characters as we proceed with Sigurd's story. And we will pick up with his meeting of Brynhild. But before we do, let's pour some meat, okay? Yes, sir. And I have here, this is a red piment I did. And a piment is actually a combination of mead and grape wine. Although you don't make the wine completely, you just introduce wine grapes into the mixture and you get a pyment. Similar to how if you, like I said, I think in part one I had a sizer, which is a combination of mead and cider. But in any event, cheers, Skell. Okay. All right, here we go. Saga of the Volsungs, part 3. And we will pick up after Sigurd ate the serpent's heart. We move to chapter 21, concerning Sigurd. It's on page 67. And it says, Sigurd now rode a long way until he came up to Hinderfell. Then he turned south toward Frockland. Ahead of him on the mountain he saw a great light, as if a fire were burning and the brightness reached up to the heavens. And when he came to it, there stood before him in a rampart of shields with a banner above it. Sigurd went into the rampart and saw a man lying there asleep, dressed in full armor. First he removed the helmet from the man's head and saw that it was a woman. She was in a coat of mail so tight that it seemed to have grown into her flesh. He sliced through the armor, down from the neck, opening out and through the sleeves, and it cut like cloth. Sigurd said she had slept too long. She asked what was so strong that it could slash through her coat of mail and rouse me from my sleep. Or is it that Sigurd the son of Sigmund has come, the one who has the helmet of Fafnir and carries Fafnir's bane in his hand? Sigurd replied, He is of the line of Volsungs who has done this work, and I have heard that you are the daughter of a powerful king. I have also been told of your beauty and wisdom, and these I will put to the test. Brynhild said that 2 kings had fought, one called Gunnar, who was old and a great warrior, and Odin had promised him the victory. The other was Agnar of Audrbrodir. I struck down Gunnar in battle, and Odin stabbed me with a sleeping thorn in revenge. He said I should never afterward have the victory. He also said that I must marry, and I made a counter vow that I would marry no one who knew fear. Sigurd said, Teach me the ways of mighty kings. She answered, You know them better than I, but gladly I will teach you, if there is anything I know that will please you about runes or other matters that concern such things. Let us drink together, and may the gods grant us a fair day, that you may gain profit and renown for my wisdom, and that you will later remember what we speak of. Brynhild filled a goblet, gave it to Sigurd, and spoke. Beer I give you, battlefield's ruler, with strength blended and with much glory. It is full of charmed verse and runes of healing, of seemly spells and a pleasing speech. Victory runes shall you know, if you want to secure wisdom, and cut them on the sword hilt, on the center ridge of the blade, and the parts of the brand, and name Tyr twice. Wave runes shall you make if you desire to ward your sail steeds on the sound. On the stem shall they be cut, and on the steering blade, and burn them on the oar. No broad breaker will fall, nor waves of blue, and you will come home safe from the sea. Speech runes shall you know, if you want no repayment. In hate words for harm done, wind them, weave them, tie them together, at that thing when all shall attend to complete court. Ale runes shall you know, if you desire no other's wife, to deceive you in troth if you trust. They shall be cut on the horn and on the hand's back, and mark the need rune for your nail. For the cup shall you make a sign, and be wary of misfortune, and throw leek into the liquor. Then I know that you will never get a potion blended with poison. Aid runes shall you learn if you want to grant assistance, to bring the child from the mother. Cut them in her palm, and hold her hand in yours, and bid the Disir not fail. Branch runes shall you know if you wish to be a healer, and to know how to see to wounds. On bark shall they be cut, and on needles of the tree whose limbs lean to east. Mind runes shall you learn if you would be wiser than all men. They were solved, they were carved out, they were heated by Hropt. They were cut on the shield that stands before the shining god, on Arvak's ear, and Alsvid's head, and on the wheel that stands under Hrungnir's chariot, on Sleipnir's reins, and on the sleigh's fetters, on bear's paw, and on Bragi's tongue, on wolf's claws, and on the eagle's beak, on bloody wings, and on bridges' ends, on the soothing palm, and on the healing step, on glass and on gold, on good silver, in ale and in wine, on the witch's seat, in human flesh, and the point of Gaupnir, and the hag's breast, on the Norn's nail, on the neb of the owl. All that were carved on these were scraped off, and mixed with the holy mead, and sent on widespread ways. They are with the elves, some with the Aesir, and with the venerable Vanir. Some belong to mortal men. They are cure runes, aid runes, ale runes, peerless power runes, for all those unspoiled and unprofaned to bring about good fortune. Enjoy them if you have learned them, until the gods perish. Now shall you choose as you are offered a choice, O maple shafts of sharp weapons. Speech or silence, you must muse for yourself, all words are already decided. Sigurd answered, I will not flee, though death fated you know I am. I will not risk conceived as a coward. I will have all of your loving advice as long as I live. Okay. So, interesting introduction there. So what happens after Sigurd rides up and away from Fafnir's lair with the gold? Well, as the birds told him in the last part 2 we read, he would go and find Brynhild. And it appears that Brynhild is in the form of a man. She's wearing this coat of mail and this helmet, and she's asleep. And there's this rampart and structure made of shields. And it appears as though that she is there because she broke a vow to Odin and is made to sleep because she was supposed to choose a husband of these two men and vowed she wouldn't, and she would only marry he who is without fear. Sigurd wakes her up by cutting through this chainmail armor that she's wearing because he has Gram, right? It's his mythical weapon, which was also Barnstock, right? So Barnstock was given to Volsung. Volsung gave it to Sigmund. Sigmund tried to cut down Odin. Barnstock was broken into pieces. Sigmund died. Sigurd has Regin refashion and reforge Gram from Barnstock, and he's able to use that weapon, which was given to his family by Odin, and cut through the mail, which was used by Odin to bound Brynhild in his sleep. What does this myth sound like, though? If you think back to fairy tales and stories, it should sound a lot like Sleeping Beauty, right? So I did a little research here, and Sleeping Beauty, or the Little Briar Rose, was written by a fellow by the name of Charles Perrault in France around 1528. Although there's possibility that there was a previous fairy tale that it was derived from, that was from the Perseforest, written perhaps 1330 and 1344. And it tells of a young maiden who's cursed to sleep for 100 years by an evil fairy until she's awakened by a handsome prince, right? And that's essentially the 1959 cartoon movie, the Sleeping Beauty, which they made into another movie like Maleficent, but I think that has almost nothing to do with Sleeping Beauty, the story. It might, I haven't seen that movie. I have no intention to either. But as a kid, I saw the original Sleeping Beauty because, cartoons were on, so why not watch a cartoon? But this story with Sigurd waking Brynhild inspired the fairy tale Sleeping Beauty, because she's cursed to sleep by Odin, and it's only Sigurd who's able to wake her. And she said a vow that she would never marry unless she met the one who had no fear. And so what do? They celebrate by drinking, and she regales him with stories of these runes, and she teaches him this magic through these runes and all the things that these different rune enchantments can do if he calls upon them or carves them in. And he mentions that he will take this advice that she gives him. Right. So let's move now to the next chapter, which would be Brynhild's Wise Counsel. Chapter 22, page 71. And it says, Sigurd said, Never can there be found a wiser woman in the world than you. Give me more wise counsel. Brynhild answered, It is right to do your bidding and to give you good advice because you seek it wisely. Then she said, Do well by your kinsmen and take little revenge for their wrongdoings. Endure with patience and you will win long-lasting praise. Beware of ill dealings, both of a maid's love and a man's wife. Ill often arises from these. Control your temper with foolish men at crowded gatherings, for they frequently speak worse than they know. When you are called a coward, people may think that you are rightfully named so. Kill the man another day, rewarding him for his malicious words. If you travel a road where evil creatures dwell, be wary. Although caught by nightfall, do not take shelter near the road, for foul beings who bewilder men often live there. Even if you see a beautiful woman at a feast, do not let them entice you so that they can interfere with your sleep or distress your mind. Do not allure them with kisses and other tenderness. And if you hear foolish words from drunken men, do not dispute with those who are drunk on wine and have lost their wits. Too many men say such things and bring much grief or even death. It is better to fight with your enemies than to be burned at home. and do not swear a false oath, because hard vengeance follows the breaking of a truce. Do the right thing by dead men, be they dead from disease, drowning, or weapon. Prepare their bodies with care, and do not trust any man, even though he is young, whose father or brother or close kinsman has been killed by you. Often a wolf lies in young son. Beware of the wiles of friends. I see only a little of your future life, yet it would be better if you hate your in-laws and did not descend upon you. Sigurd said, no one is wiser than you, and I swear that I shall marry you, for you are to my liking. She replied, I would most prefer to marry you, even should I choose from all other men. And this they pledged with vows between them. All right, so that's nice. So it seems like the author of this story is trying to use the dialogue of Brynhild and Sigurd to give young men advice about what not to do. It's like, don't get into fights with drunk people. You know, they're just saying stupid stuff because their wits are gone. Don't trust people who've killed one of your kin. If someone is going to call you a coward, that people might believe it after a while. Things of this nature. Almost like words of the High One from the Havamal, right? The Havamal was essentially words from Odin to the Norse in little proverbs, and it seems like this is what's happening here. But in the story, Sigurd is just listening to Brynhild give advice, and he's like, wow, you're really smart, and you're probably the smartest person I know. We should get married. And she says, let's get married. And so they exchange vows. And that was that chapter. All right, we'll move now to Sigurd comes to Heimir, page 73, chapter 24. And it begins, Sigurd now rode until he came to a large estate. A great chieftain named Heimir ruled over there. He was married to the sister of Brynhild, called Brynhild, because she had stayed at home and learned needlework and other feminine skills. But Brynhild took up the helmet and mail coat and went to battle. Thus she was called Brynhild. Heimir and Brynhild had a son named Alsvid, the most courteous of men. Outside, men were playing at their sports. But when they saw the man riding up to the dwellings, they called a halt to their game and marveled at him, for they never saw his like. They went to meet him and received him well. Alsvid asked Sigurd to stay and receive from him whatever he wished. Sigurd accepted this offer. Preparations were made to serve him nobly. 4 men lifted the gold from his horse, and a fifth took care of him. There were many rare and precious treasures to be seen. The men thought it great entertainment to look at the mail coats, helmets, huge rings, marvelously large gold cups, and all kinds of weapons. Sigurd remained there a long time with great honor. This news of his magnificent deed, that he had killed the terrible dragon, had now spread through all the lands. The men enjoyed themselves well, and each was loyal to the other. And to amuse themselves, they prepared their weapons, making arrow shafts and hunting with their hawks. Okay, so what happens here? So Sigurd rides to this estate, and he meets this chieftain, Heimir. And this is our Heimir fellow right here. And he is married to the sister of Brynhild. So he's Brynhild's, brother-in-law. And they have a kid named Alsvid, and he's a very courteous guy. He's the courteous of all men. And what happens when Sigurd pulls up, they see this, champion, this magnificent dude, and he's dragging literally enough treasure that 4 horses are, burdened down by it. So yeah, if you saw this guy pull into your estate and he's carrying all this gold with these gold cups and this gold chainmail and golden helmets and these fancy weapons, you'd probably say, hey, why don't you stay for a while? It'd be great if you kind of spent the night here, maybe spent the weekend or more. How about that? And Sigurd said, sure, yeah, I'll enjoy your company. And it seems like he settles down with Heimir for a while and their family and gets to know them. All right, we'll move to chapter 25, the conversation between Sigurd and Brynhild. Page 73. Now Brynhild, Heimir's foster daughter, had come home. She stayed in a bower with her maidens. More skilled in handicraft than other women, she embroidered her tapestry with gold, and on it stitched stories of the noble deeds that Sigurd had wrought. The slaying of the serpent, the seizing of the gold, and the death of Regin. It is said that one day Sigurd rode into the woods with his hounds and his hawks and many followers. When he returned home, his hawk flew to a high tower and settled by a window. Sigurd went after the hawk. Then he saw a fair woman and realized that it was Brynhild. Both her beauty and her work affected him deeply. He went to the hall, but did not want to join in the sport of the men. Then Alsvid said, why are you so quiet? This change in you concerns us, your friends. Why can you not be merry? Your hawks are moping, as is your horse Grani. It will be a long time before this is amended. Sigurd answered, "Good friend, listen to what is on my mind. My hawk flew to a tower, and when I captured him, I saw a beautiful woman. She sat at a golden tapestry and embroidered there my past deeds." Alsvid replied, "You seem Brynhild, the daughter of Budli, a woman of most noble bearing." Sigurd answered, "That must certainly be so. When did she get here?" Alsvid said, "There was only a short time between your arrivals." Sigurd said, "This I learned just a few days ago. This woman seemed to me the best in the world." Alsvid spoke, "Such a man as you should not pay attention to a woman. It is bad to pine for what cannot be obtained." "I shall meet her," said Sigurd. "I shall give her gold and gain mutual affection and love." Alsvid answered, "There has yet to be a man that she allows to sit by her whom she does not give ale to drink. She wants to go warring and win all kinds of fame." Sigurd said, "I do not know whether she will answer me or not, or whether she will let me sit by her." The next day Sigurd went to her chamber. Alsvid stood outside by the room, making arrow shafts. Sigurd said, "Be greeted, lady, and how do you fare?" She replied, "I am faring well. My kin and friends are alive, but it is unknown what fortune men will have to their dying day." He sat down next to her. Then 4 women entered bearing large golden goblets and the best of wine and stood before them. Brynhild said, "That seat is granted to few except when my father comes." Sigurd replied, "Now it is granted to whoever pleases me." The room was hung with the most precious tapestries and cloth covered in the whole floor. Sigurd said, "Now it has happened as you promised," she answered. "You will be welcomed here." Then she rose up and the 4 maidens with her. She brought him a golden cup and invited him to drink. He reached down toward the cup but took her hand, drawing her down beside him. He put his arms around her neck and kissed her, saying, "No fairer woman than you has ever been born." Brynhild said, "It is wiser counsel not to put your trust in women, because women always break their promises." Sigurd said, "The best day for us would be when we can enjoy each other." Brynhild said, "It is not fated that we should live together. I am a shield-maiden. I wear a helmet and ride with warrior kings. I must support them, and I am not averse to fighting." Sigurd answered, "Our lives will be most fruitful if spent together. If we do not live together, the grief will be harder to endure than a sharp weapon." Brynhild replied, "I must review the troops of warriors, and you will marry Gudrun, the daughter of Gjuki." Sigurd answered, "No king's daughter shall entice me. I am not of 2 minds in this, and I swear by the gods that I will marry you and no other woman." She spoke likewise. Sigurd thanked her for her words and gave her a golden ring. They swore their oaths anew. He went away to his men and was there with them for a time, prospering greatly. Okay, so it appears as though Sigurd, in this instance, at Heimir's court, his estate, was unaware that Brynhild was also in attendance and was related to the chieftain Heimir as a foster daughter. So he's going out and hunting with the guys of Heimir's court, and he's sad because he catches the image of Brynhild in the window, and it's almost as if they pretend to be strangers, right? Like we don't remember him cutting her chainmail off and saving her from that sleep. But he's still of the same mind, and he still believes that they're meant to be together and that he's going to marry her. But Brynhild actually has the gift of prophecy, at least for the near future. Maybe not the permanent, not the far off future, but the near future. And she says that he's supposed to marry Gudrun. But he says, no, I don't care what you foresee in the future. It's going to be you and I, and that's the way it should be. And so she, I guess, agrees to his proposal this time. They renew their vows, and she reminds him of the same advice she gave him when they first met, was that don't try to use tenderness and kisses on women to get their affection and their promises, because a woman will break her promise. And this is coming from a woman, the woman he loves no less. But he's smitten, he can't help it, and he just won't take no for an answer. And she acquiesces, at least for now. But let's read the next chapter and see what happens. We go to chapter 26, concerning King Gjuki and his sons. Page 75. There was a king named Gjuki, whose kingdom was south of the Rhine. He had 3 sons who were Gunnar, Hogni, and Gudrun. Gudrun, his daughter, was the most famous of maidens. They surpassed the children of other kings, both in looks and in stature, and all their accomplishments. They were always harrying and performed many great feats. Gjuki was married to Brynhild, a woman well versed in magic. There was a king named Budli. He was more powerful than Gjuki, although both of them were powerful. Atli was the name of Brynhild's brother. He was a grim man, large and dark. Yet he had a princely bearing and was an exceptional warrior. Grimhild was a grim-minded woman. The realm of the Gjukungs flourished, chiefly because of Gjuki's children, who surpassed most others in every way. One time, Gudrun told her maidens that she could not be happy. One woman asked her what was troubling her. She answered, "I do not prosper in my dreams, and my heart grieves because of this. Explain my dream, since you inquire about it." "Tell me, do not be distressed," the woman replied, "because always one dreams before storms." Gudrun answered, "This dream has nothing to do with weather. I dreamt that I saw a handsome hawk on my hand. His feathers were of a golden hue." The woman replied, "Many have heard of your beauty, wisdom, and courtesy. Some king's son will ask for you in marriage." Gudrun continued, "I cared for nothing more than for this hawk, and I would rather have lost all my wealth than him." "The man you marry will be well bred, and you will love him deeply," replied the woman. Gudrun said, "It vexes me not to know who he is. I will visit Brynhild, she will know." They adorned themselves with gold and with beautiful raiments, and traveled with their maidens until they came to Brynhild's hall. This hall was ornamented with gold and stood on a precipice. And when their train was seen, Brynhild was told that many women were driving toward the fortress in gilded wagons. "That must be Gudrun, the daughter of Gjuki," she said. "I dreamt about her last night. Let us go meet her. No women more beautiful come to visit us." They went out to meet Gudrun, and the women received each other well. They entered the splendid hall. The interior of the hall was decorated with paintings and tapestries, and much adorned with silver. Cloths were spread between their feet, and all waited upon them. They had all sorts of games. Gudrun was very quiet. Brynhild said, "Why can't you be merry? Don't be this way. Let us amuse ourselves together by talking of powerful kings and splendid deeds." "Let us do that," said Gudrun. "And who do you consider to have be the foremost of kings?" Brynhild replied, "Haki and Hagbard, the sons of Hamund. They performed more famous feats in warfare." Gudrun answered, "They were great and renowned, yet Sigurd took their sister and burned another in her house, and they are slow at revenge. But why have you not mentioned my brothers, who are now considered the foremost of men?" Brynhild said, "That is all very well, but they have not yet been sufficiently tried. And I know of one who far exceeds them, and that is Sigurd, the son of Sigmund. He was still a boy when he killed the sons of King Hunding and avenged his father and Elimi, his mother's father." Gudrun said, "What is the proof of that? Are you saying that he was already born when his father fell?" Brynhild answered, "His mother went to the battlefield and found the wounded King Sigmund. She offered to bind his wounds, but he declared himself too old to fight any more. He told her to take comfort, and she would bear an extraordinary son. And this prophecy was the insight of a wise man. After the death of King Sigmund, she went with King Alf, and Sigurd was raised there with great honor. Every day he performed valiant deeds, and he is the most excellent man in the world." Gudrun said, "You have learned about him because of love, but I have come here to tell you my dreams, for they have brought me grave concern." Brynhild replied, "Do not let such things vex you. Stay with your kinsmen, all of whom wish to make you happy." All right, so here we go. We're introduced to the love triangle, right? So Brynhild and Gudrun have history. She's the daughter of King Gjuki. Brynhild has Gudrun and the other maidens come to Hymir's hall, and they talk because Gudrun has this dream. And she dreams about this hawk on her arm, like a war hawk, and it's golden hued. And she says in the dream she could think of nothing other than this hawk, and she would have given away all her wealth if it meant keeping the hawk. And the woman who first interprets her dream says, "You will marry a famous man and he will make you happy." And of course she's referring to Sigurd as the golden hawk. But the problem here is we know that Sigurd has eyes for Brynhild only. But Brynhild tells the story of Sigurd via the death of Sigmund and what his mother had to do to secure Sigurd's birth and have King Alf raise him. So she has the gift of prophecy, and she can also foretell past events that she wasn't present for. So she's trying to fix Sigurd up with Gudrun, we can see right now. So this is a weird triangle, right? It's not like Sigurd loves Brynhild, Gudrun loves Sigurd, and there's a fight this way. It's Sigurd loves Brynhild, Brynhild says, "Hey, you should be with Gudrun," and Brynhild is trying to set Sigurd up with Gudrun. It's wacky, but that's what's going on. All right, now we'll move to chapter 27, Brynhild interprets Gudrun's dream. Page 77. "I dreamt," said Gudrun, "that many of us left my bower together and saw a huge stag. He far surpassed other deer. His hair was of gold. We all wanted to catch the stag, but I alone was able to do so. The stag seemed finer to me than anything else. But then you shot down the stag right in front of me. That was such a deep sorrow to me that I could hardly stand it. Then you gave me a wolf's cub. It spattered me with the blood of my brothers. Brynhild replied, I will tell you just what will happen. To you will come Sigurd, the man I have chosen for my husband. Grimhild will give him bewitched mead, which will bring us all grief. You will marry him and quickly lose him. Then you will wed King Atli. You will lose your brothers, and then you will kill King Atli. Gudrun answered, the grief of knowing such things overwhelms me. And now she and her attendants departed and traveled home to King Gjuki. All right, that was a short one, but wow, she really laid it on her. She said, in no uncertain terms, here's what's going to happen, Gudrun. Brace yourself. Maybe you should sit down if you're not sitting already. You are going to have Sigurd, the man who's going to be my husband. All right, so we're already off to a bad start. Grimhild will give him bewitched mead. What a mean thing to do. And that's going to bring us all grief. And then you will marry him and then lose him. And then you will wed King Atli, who is Attila the Hun. And you're going to lose your brothers, and then you're going to have to kill Atli. And Gudrun says, wow, that's quite a dream interpretation. I guess thanks for that. So she sees the golden hawk in one dream and the golden stag in another. And the golden stag and the golden hawk are both Sigurd. And these premonitions she's having are possibly foretelling of the, I guess, calamity that lies in all their future. All right, let's move now to chapter 28. The ale of forgetfulness is blended for Sigurd. Page 78. Sigurd now rode away with the mass of gold, leaving his companions in friendship. With all his armor and burden, he rode on Grani, traveling until he came to the hall of King Gjuki. He rode into the fortress. One of the king's men saw him and said, I think that one of the gods is coming here. This man is all equipped in gold. His horse is far larger than others, and his weaponry is exceptionally fine. He is far above other men, and he himself surpasses them. The king went out with his retainers and greeted the man, asking, Who are you who rides in this castle? No one dares do this without permission of my sons. He responded, I am called Sigurd, and I am the son of King Sigmund. King Gjuki said, Be welcome here and with us. Receive everything you desire. Sigurd entered the hall. Everyone was short compared with him. They all served him, and he remained there in great favor. Sigurd, Gunnar, and Hogni all rode together, but Sigurd surpassed them in all accomplishments, although they were all mighty men. Grimhild perceived how much Sigurd loved Brynhild, and how often he mentioned her. She thought it would be far more fortunate if he settled there and married the daughter of King Gjuki. She also saw that no one would equal Sigurd and realized the importance of his support. Besides, he had exceptional wealth, far exceeding what men had known before. The king treated him as his sons, and they esteemed him well more than themselves. One evening, when they sat together drinking, the queen rose, went to Sigurd, and said to him, It is a great joy for us that you are here, and we wish to set all good things before you. Take the horn and drink. He accepted it and drank from it. She said, King Gjuki shall be your father, and I your mother, while Gunnar and Hogni and all who swear the oath shall be your brothers. Then your equal will not be found. Sigurd received this well, and because of that drink, he could not remember Brynhild. He stayed there for a while. And one time when Grimhild went to King Gjuki, put her arms around his neck and said, The most valiant hero that can be found in the world has come here. There will be much support in him. Give him your daughter in marriage, along with many riches and such power as he wants, and he might be able to find pleasure here. The king replied, It is a rare thing to offer one's daughter, but there is more honor in offering her to him than in having others propose. One evening Gudrun served the drink. Sigurd noticed that she was a beautiful woman and most courtly in all things. Sigurd stayed there for 5 seasons, and they lived in friendship and fame. Then the kings now spoke among themselves. King Gjuki said, You have done us much good, Sigurd, and you have greatly strengthened our state. Gunnar spoke, We want to do everything to encourage you to stay here a long time. We will offer you a position of authority in our sister's hand, and no one else would receive those things even if they were to ask. Sigurd answered, Be thanked for this honor. I shall accept. They now swore a pact of brotherhood, as if they were brothers born of the same parents. A magnificent feast was prepared, lasting many days. Sigurd now wed Gudrun. There were all sorts of festivities and entertainments to be seen, and each day's feasting proved better than before. They now traveled widely throughout the lands, performing many splendid deeds and killing many kings' sons. No men worked such bold deeds as they. They returned home with a huge store of booty. Sigurd gave Gudrun some of Fafnir's heart to eat, and after this she was much grimmer and wiser than before. Their son was called Sigmund. One day Grimhild went to her son Gunnar and said, You are prospering in all matters except one, that you are unmarried. Ask for Brynhild in marriage. That would be the noblest match you could make, and Sigurd will ride with you." Gunnar answered, "Certainly she is beautiful, and I am not unwilling." He told his brothers and fathers and Sigurd, and they all encouraged him. Okay, so yeah, here's where it probably gets a little ugly. You see storm clouds on the horizon with this chapter, I think. So Sigurd leaves the court of Heimir. He rides away from Brynhild, who he loves. And just like Brynhild predicts, he is accepted by King Gjuki and Gjuki's sons. And he gets along with them just like he did in Heimir's court. And Queen Grimhild, yeah, she's pretty crafty. She's pretty sly, this Grimhild. She sees Sigurd, and this dude is like head and shoulders above everybody else. He's obviously the greatest champion they've ever encountered. So she figures, I'll brew him some mead, right? A little concoction I can make of my own. And there'll be some magic in that mead. And it will cause him to forget Brynhild. He'll forget the woman he loves. And once he's had enough of this mead, we'll propose to him that he proposed to our daughter Gudrun. He marries into the family. Now we have the greatest Norse champion of all time in our family on our side. How cool is that? And that's what happens. Sigurd takes the mead. He downs the mead, forgets all about Brynhild, sees Gudrun, and he says, "Whoa, you're hot." And they're like, "Yeah, how about you and she get married and you become our brother-in-law?" And since he forgot about Brynhild, he says, "Yeah, okay, sure. That sounds like a good deal. Let's do that." And they do. And they go around the lands, killing many king's sons and taking much booty. And he gives Gudrun some of Fafnir's heart to eat, which is weird. Like, where was he keeping this heart? Was it in like a fridge somewhere? And what kind of woman is she? Like, you pull out this massive dragon heart and he carves off a piece and she decides to eat it. But because she does, she becomes grimmer and wiser than before, which doesn't sound like a good thing. Nevertheless, they have a son, and he names the son after his late father, Sigmund. And now they're riding to Heimir's court once again, except on this event, it's going to be Gunnar that's going to propose to Brynhild. And we'll see what happens. Chapter 29, Sigurd rides from the wavering flames of Brynhild, the daughter of Budli. Page 80. Now they magnificently prepared for their journey. They rode over mountains and through the valleys of King Budli. They presented their request of marriage. He was well disposed to the match, provided Brynhild did not refuse. He said she was so proud that she would marry only the man she wanted. They rode now to Hilmdale. Heimir received them well. Gunnar told of his errand. Heimir said that the choice of a husband was Brynhild's. He said that her hall was a short distance away and that he believed she would want to marry only the man who rode through the blazing fire surrounding it. They found the hall and the fire, and there they saw a golden roof fortress with fire burning on the outside. Gunnar rode Gadi, and Hogni rode Holkvir. Gunnar spurred his horse toward the fire, but he shied away. Sigurd said, "Why are you drawing back, Gunnar?" He answered, "The horse does not want to leap this fire," and he asked Sigurd to lend him Grani. "He's at your disposal," said Sigurd. Gunnar now rode the fire, but Grani did not want to go. Thus Gunnar could not ride through the fire. Sigurd and Gunnar exchanged shapes, as Grimhild had taught them. Then Sigurd rode with Gram in his hand, and on his feet he bound golden spurs. When he felt the spurs, Grani leapt forward toward the fire. There was a deafening roar as the fire swelled and the earth trembled. The flames rose to the heavens, and no one dared do this before. It was as if he rode into pitch darkness. Then the fire subsided. Sigurd dismounted, and went into the hall. Thus it is said, "The fire began to flare, and the earth to shudder, and high flames to heaven towered. Few of the king's men had courage enough to ride in the fire or to leap across it. Sigurd with his sword spurred Grani on. The flames expired before the prince. The fire fell back before the fame-hungry one. The harness was radiant, which Regin had owned. And when Sigurd got past the flames, he found a beautiful dwelling, and inside sat Brynhild. She asked who this man was. He called himself Gunnar, the son of Gjuki. And with the consent of your father, and the agreement of your foster father, you are my intended wife, provided I ride your wavering flame, and if you should so decide." "I hardly know how to respond," she said. Sigurd stood straight up upon the floor, resting on the hilt of his sword, and said to Brynhild, "I shall pay a generous marriage settlement of gold and precious treasures in return for your hand." She answered gravely from her seat, like a swan on a wave, in her mail coat, with her sword in her hand and her helmet on her head. "Gunnar," she said, Do not speak of such things to me, unless you surpass every other man, and you will kill those who have asked for me in marriage, if you have the courage to do so. I was in battle with the king of Gudrun, and our weapons were stained with the blood of men, and this is still what I desire." He replied, "You have performed many splendid feats, but now call to mind your vow, that if this fire were crossed, you would go with the man who did it." She recognized the truth in his answer and the significance on his speech. She rose and received him well. He stayed there for 3 nights, and they slept in one bed. He took the sword Gram and lay it unsheathed between them. She asked why he put it there. He said it was fated that he must celebrate his marriage in this manner or else die. He took from her the ring Andravaranaut, which he had given her, and he gave her now another ring from Fafnir's inheritance. After this he rode away through the same fire to his champions. Sigurd and Gunnar changed back into their own shapes, and then rode to Hilmdale and related what had happened. That same day, Brynhild journeyed home to her foster father. She told him in private that a king had come to her and rode through my wavering flames, declaring he had come to win me. He called himself Gunnar. Yet when I swore the oath on the mountain, I had said that Sigurd alone could do that, and he is my first husband. Heimir said that it would have to remain as it was. Brynhild said, "My daughter by Sigurd, Aslog, shall be raised here with you." The kings now went home, and Brynhild went to her father. Grimhild received them well and thanked Sigurd for his support. A feast was prepared, and a great many people came. King Budli came with his daughter and his son Atli, and the feast lasted many days. When the celebration ended, Sigurd remembered all his vows to Brynhild, although he did not let this be known. Brynhild and Gunnar sat together at the entertainment and drank good wine. Okay, so what happens in here? So they can't figure a way to get through the flames that are surrounding Brynhild's hall, which this was never mentioned before for some reason. Like, she lives in this hall and it's surrounded by this supernatural, burglar deterrent, this ring of flames. And Gunnar's trying to get his horse to go and it won't go. Then he asks Sigurd, "Hey, give me your horse Grani." And Grani won't go into the flames either. Then Sigurd rode with Gram in his hand. On his feet he bound golden spurs. So he exchanges shapes with Gunnar. I don't know why, but he does. And so it looks as though Gunnar is actually going into the flames to meet Brynhild. But it's actually Sigurd. And so Sigurd takes the place of Gunnar, wins Brynhild's, hand, stays with her 3 nights, and they conceive, and she knows she's going to have a daughter who is Aslog. So this is getting pretty soap opera-esque right now. We've got Sigurd, Brynhild, and Gudrun. He forgot all about Brynhild, hitched Gudrun, came with Gunnar to, retrieve Brynhild's hand in marriage, exchanged shapes with Gunnar, makes it through the fire, sleeps with Brynhild anyway, and they have Aslog. So this triangle is going bananas right now. All right, let's move on, and we'll read the next chapter, Dispute of the Queens, Brynhild and Gudrun, chapter 30, 82. Page 82. One day Brynhild and Gudrun went to bathe in the river Rhine. Then Brynhild waded farther out in the river. Gudrun asked what this meant. Brynhild said, "Why should I be your equal more in this than in other matters? I think my father is more powerful than yours, and my husband has accomplished many splendid feats and rode through the burning fire, but your husband was a thrall of King Hjalprek." Gudrun answered angrily, "It would be wiser for you to hold your tongue than to insult my husband. Everyone agrees that no one at all is all like him that has come into the world. It is not fitting for you to insult him because he was your first man. He killed Fafnir and rode the wavering flames when you thought it was King Gunnar. He lay with you and took you from the hand the ring of Andravaranaut, which you can now see here for yourself." Brynhild saw the ring, recognizing it, and became as pale as death. Brynhild went home and spoke no word that evening. When Sigurd came to bed, Gudrun asked, "Why is Brynhild so gloomy?" Sigurd replied, "I am not certain, but I suspect we shall soon know more clearly." Gudrun said, "Why does she not take delight in the wealth and happiness and the praise of all men, and she has married the man she wanted?" Sigurd said, "Where was she when she said this, that she thought herself to have the best man or the one that she most wanted to marry?" Gudrun answered, "In the morning I shall inquire whom she most wants to marry." This I ask you not to do, Sigurd replied, for once done you will repent it. That morning they sat in their bower, and Brynhild was silent. Then Gudrun said, Be cheerful, Brynhild. Did our conversation distress you? What prevents your happiness? Brynhild replied, Malice alone brought you to this. You have a grim heart. Do not think that, said Gudrun. Tell me instead. Brynhild answered, Only ask what is best for you to know. That is suitable for noble women, and it is easy to be satisfied while everything happens according to your desires. Gudrun replied, It is early yet to boast, but this is somehow prophetic. Why are you goading me? I have done nothing to grieve you. You shall pay for marrying Sigurd. I cannot bear that you enjoy him in that vast gold treasure, Brynhild answered. I do not know of your agreement, said Gudrun, and my father might well arrange a marriage for me without consulting you. Brynhild replied, Our talk was not secret, and yet we had sworn oaths. You knew that you were betraying me, and that the betrayal I shall avenge. Gudrun answered, You are better married than you deserve, but your pride will not easily subside, and many will pay for this. I would have been content, said Brynhild, if you did not have the nobler man. Gudrun answered, You have such a noble husband with abundant wealth and power that it is uncertain who is the greater king. Brynhild replied, Sigurd fought Fafnir, and that is worth more than all of Gunnar's power. As is told, Sigurd fought the dragon, and afterward will be forgotten by no one, while men still live. Yet your brother neither dared to ride into the fire, nor to leap across it. Gudrun replied, Grani would not run the fire with King Gunnar on him, but Gunnar dared to ride him. There is no need to challenge his courage. I do not hide my lack of goodwill for Brynhild said. Gudrun answered, Do not blame her, for she treats you like her own daughter. Brynhild replied, She contrived the whole onset of this misfortune that consumes us. She brought Sigurd the ruinous ale, so that he would not remember my name. Gudrun answered, You speak many unjust words. It is a great lie. Brynhild replied, Enjoy Sigurd as if you had not betrayed me. You are undeserving to live together. May things proceed for you as I foresee. Gudrun answered, I will enjoy more than you would wish. No one has reported that he was too good to me, not even once. Brynhild answered, You are spiteful in your speech. When you regain your composure, you will regret this conversation. Let us no longer bandy words of hate. Gudrun said, You first flung malicious words at me. Now you act in a conciliatory way, yet hatred is at the root of this. Let us stop this useless chatter, said Brynhild. I kept my silence for a long time about the sorrow in my breast, yet I love only your brother. Let us speak of other things. Gudrun said, Your thoughts see far beyond the present. Great sorrow came to pass because they went to the river, and Brynhild recognized the ring from which their conversation rose. Whoa, boy. Daytime soap opera stuff. So the love triangle here now doesn't appear to be working out like it was before. I don't see Brynhild's problem in this because she actually foretold to Sigurd, hey, you're going to be with Gudrun even though you want to be with me. So that's just the way it is, buddy. Sigurd said, no, I think it's going to be you and me, Brynhild, because you're the hottest and I'm the baddest dude. Why wouldn't it be us? She says, okay, maybe it will, maybe it won't. What do I know? I just foresee the future. But then, Gudrun's mother, Grimhild, she makes this enchanted ale. Sigurd forgets all about Brynhild and is, now going to marry Gudrun. Except now Gunnar comes to retrieve Brynhild, but only Sigurd makes it through the fire because I guess he was right. He was destined to be with her. And it ends up that, Brynhild finds out she slept with Sigurd after all. So she's with the lesser guy. Gudrun's going to get Sigurd because that's the arrangement now. And she's supposed to get Gunnar. And if you really want to piss off a woman, tell her that she has the lesser of two men. Yeah, that's the truth of it. I mean, this book is, the story rather is almost 1,000 years old, and have times really changed? You've got two women here, and they're taking a bath in this river, and Brynhild decides to walk out farther than Gudrun. And she's like, what's the meaning of that, Brynhild? She's like, well, I have a better husband, so why shouldn't I be farther out in the river too? And Gudrun says, oh, is that right? Is that what you think you've got? And Brynhild's like, yeah, well, what do you think I have? And she says, oh, nothing. I just think you have Gunnar and I have Sigurd. And Sigurd's the better of the two guys because he killed Fafnir. He has the treasure. And you just got some guy who has neither. And Brynhild hears this and she gets pissed off. She's like, how dare you? How dare you? My husband's just as good as your husband's. She's like, oh, really? Well, what about this ring? That means my husband was the guy who jumped through the fire and slept with you, making you think it was your husband. She even attacks her with that. You thought you were sleeping with your husband, but it turns out you were sleeping with my man, and he's the better of the two. So how about those apples? Whoa. Yeah, I mean, it gets pretty nasty. Hell hath no fury, right? Brynhild and Gudrun. Okay, let's read on. Chapter 31, Brynhild's grief only increases, page 84. After this conversation, Brynhild took to her bed. King Gunnar received word that she was sick, and he went to see her, asking what vexed her. But she did not respond and lay as if she was dead. And when he persisted in the matter, she answered, "What did you do with that ring I gave you? King Budli gave me this ring at our last parting, when you, the sons of King Gjuki, came to him and swore you would destroy and burn if you did not get me. He then took me aside and asked which man of those who had come I would choose. But I offered to defend the land and to be commander of a third of the army. There were then two choices at hand. Either I would have to marry the man he wished or to give up all the wealth and his pledge of friendship. He said that his friendship was more profitable for me than this anger. Then I debated with myself whether I should submit to his will or kill many men. I thought myself powerless to contend with him, so it happened that I betrothed myself to the one who would ride the horse Grani with Fafnir's inheritance, to that one who would ride through my wavering flames and would kill those men who I decided should die. Now no one dared to ride except Sigurd alone. He rode to the fire because he was not short of courage for the deed. He killed the dragon and Regan and 5 kings, unlike you, Gunnar, who blanched like a corpse. You are neither king nor champion, and I made this solemn vow at my father's home that I would love that man alone who is noblest man born, and that is Sigurd. Now I am a breaker of oaths, as I do not have him. Because of this I shall bring about your death, and I have Grimhild to reward in an evil fashion. There is no woman worse or more cowardly." Gunnar responded in such a manner that few heard. "You have spoken many false words, and you are a malicious woman to blame that woman who was far above you. She was not so discontent as you are, as she did not torment dead men. She murdered no one, and she is praised." Brynhild answered, "I have had no secret meetings, nor have I committed any crimes. My nature is different, and I might be more disposed to kill you." Then she wanted to kill Gunnar, but Hogni put her in fetters. Gunnar then said, "I do not want her to live in chains." Brynhild answered, "Do not concern yourself about that, because from this day on you will never see me cheerful in your hall. I will neither drink nor play chess, speak entertainingly, embroider fair garments with gold, nor give you advice." She declared with the most grievous sorrow that she was not married to Sigurd. She sat up and struck her tapestry so that it tore apart. She bid her chamber door be opened so that her lamentations could be heard far away. Now the sorrow was boundless and was heard throughout the stronghold. Gudrun asked her serving women why they were so gloomy and sad. "What is wrong with you? Why do you go about like mad people? What panic has seized you?" Then a woman of the court, Svarflod, answered, "This is an evil day. Our hall is full of grief." Gudrun spoke to her friend. "Stand up. We have slept a long time. Wake Brynhild. We will go out to our needlework, and be cheerful." "I will not do it," she said. "I will neither wake her nor speak to her. For many days she has drunk neither mead nor wine, and a godlike wrath is upon her." Gudrun spoke to Gunnar. "Go visit her," she said, "and say that her grief pains us." Gunnar answered, "I am forbidden to see her or share her wealth." Still Gunnar went to visit her and tried many directions of conversation with her, but he received nothing in the way of an answer. He went away now and met with Hogni, asking him to visit her. Hogni, though saying he was not eager to see her, went but got nothing from her. Then Sigurd was found and asked to visit her, but Sigurd did not reply. So matters stood that evening. The next day, when Sigurd returned home from hunting, he met with Gudrun and said, "I have come to see that this whore is full of portent, and Brynhild will die." Gudrun answered, "My lord, strange and marvelous qualities are associated with her. She has now slept for 7 days so that none dare wake her." Sigurd replied, "She is not sleeping. She is plotting harsh deeds against us." Then Gudrun spoke tearfully, "It is an enormous grief to foresee your death. Go rather and visit her and see whether her vehemence will subside. Give her gold and so appease her anger." Sigurd went out and found the hall open. He thought Brynhild asleep, drew back the bed covers from her and said, "Wake up, Brynhild. The sun is shining throughout the town and you have slept enough. Throw off your sorrow and be happy." She said, "How arrogant you are to come see me. No one has behaved worse toward me in this treachery." Sigurd asked, Why do you not speak to people? What is vexing you?" Brynhild answered, "I will tell you of my anger." Sigurd said, "You are bewitched if you believe I think harshly of you, and you received as your husband the one you chose." "No," she said, "Gunnar did not ride through the fire to me, nor did he pay me the marriage settlement in slain men. I wondered at the man who entered my hall, and I thought I recognized your eyes, but I could not perceive clearly because of the veil that lay over my fate." Sigurd said, "I am no nobler a man than the sons of Gjuki. They killed the king of the Danes and a great prince, the brother of King Budli. Brynhild answered, I have many wrongs to discharge against them. Do not remind me of my anguish. You, Sigurd, killed the serpent and rode through the fire for my sake. The sons of Gjuki did not do that. Sigurd answered, I did not become your husband, nor you my wife, and a noble king paid your marriage settlement. Brynhild replied, I have never looked so upon Gunnar that my heart was gladdened. I loathe him, although I conceal it from others. It is terrible, said Sigurd, not to love such a king. But what troubles you most? It seems to me that this love would be worth more than gold to you. Brynhild answered, It is the most grievous of all sorrows that I cannot bring it out when a sharp blade be reddened with your blood. Sigurd said, Hold your judgment. It is a short wait until a biting sword will stick in my heart, and you could not ask for worse for yourself, because you will not live after me. For here on few days of life are left to us. Brynhild answered, Your words do not come from little distress. Since you cheated me of all my delight, I care not about my life. Sigurd replied, Live and love King Gunnar and me, and I will give all my treasures so that you not die. Brynhild said, You do not altogether know my character. You surpass all men, yet no woman has become more loathsome to you than I. Something else is closer to the truth, replied Sigurd. I love you more than myself, although I was the object of deceit that cannot be now changed. Always when my mind was my own, it pained me that you were not my wife. But I bore it well, and I could live in the king's hall. Yet I was happy that we were all together. It may be that what was earlier foretold will have to happen, but shall not be feared. Brynhild answered, You have delayed too long in telling me that my sorrow grieves you, and now I shall find no comfort. I should like us both to enter one bed, said Sigurd, and you to be my wife. Brynhild answered, Such things are not to be said. I will not have two kings in one hall, and sooner would I die before I would deceive King Gunnar. Now she called their meeting to on the mountain, and swore an oath. But now everything has changed, and I do not want to live. I could not remember your name, said Sigurd. I do not recognize you until you were married, and that is my deepest sorrow. Then Brynhild spoke. I swore an oath to marry that man who would ride through my wavering flames, and that oath I would hold else or die. Rather than you have died, I shall forsake Gudrun and marry you, said Sigurd, and his sides swelled that the links of his mail burst. I do not want you, said Brynhild, or anyone else. Sigurd went away, as it is told in the Lay of Sigurd. Out went Sigurd, leaving talk, hero's worthy friend, and grieved so deeply that the heaving breast of the battle-eager one sheared from his sides the iron-woven shirt. And when Sigurd entered the hall, Gunnar asked if he knew what Brunhild's affliction was and whether she had recovered her speech. Sigurd said she was able to speak, and now Gunnar went to visit her again and asked what her sorrow meant and whether there was a cure for it. I do not want to live, said Brunhild, because Sigurd has betrayed me, and he betrayed you no less when you let him come into my bed. Now I do not want to have two husbands in the same hall. This shall be Sigurd's death, or yours or mine, because he has told Gudrun everything, and she reviles me. Whoa. That's heavy stuff. So Sigurd, this could be the curse of gold, right? He still has this treasure with him. He still has this massive wealth, this hoard, this booty. And as Fafnir told him, you kill me now, but I tell you, regardless of my death, if you take my treasure, I will have my revenge because it will curse you as it has cursed I. And Fafnir was cursed in the form of a dragon, and his lust was that gold, and he lay on top of it. Now that Sigurd has taken it, first thing he meets is Brynhild, right? She tells him that I will be your advisor, everything will be great, you will gain much wisdom from me, and you will be a great king. He falls in love with her. She says, hey, you're nice and everything, but you're supposed to be with Gudrun. I've foreseen this. Sigurd says, no, it's going to be you, it's going to be me, and she agrees. But then Sigurd falls under a spell through Mead. Grimhild, Gudrun's mother, tricks him. He marries Gudrun, forgets all about Brynhild. Gunnar wants to marry Brynhild because Grimhild says, like, that's the best match for you. This triangle is still going on. Gudrun knows about the love affair between Sigurd and Brynhild and teases her, probably even torments her about it. Brynhild's angry now because she believes she has the lesser of the two men. She just can't be happy with what she has. Yeah, that's okay. Enough said about that. But she now reviles Sigurd, Gudrun, and Grimhild, and even Gunnar. She hates them all. She's throwing a fit. She's tearing her hair out. She's screeching so the whole stronghold can hear it. She tears up the tapestries that she was weaving about Sigurd's story. She's just fit to be tied. And now she believes that because she was tricked into breaking her oath, which would be to marry the most noblest of men, the one who rode through her flames of fire, her wavering flames, and because Sigurd was part of this betrayal, maybe knowingly, maybe unknowingly, it sounds like unknowingly for the most part, she's going to get revenge on him too. And this love triangle is going to come crashing down around them. Yeah. But we'll have to find out about that in part 4 for the Saga of the Volsungs. Okay, so that'll do it for part 3. I appreciate everybody who stuck around for this one. This was probably another long one. I'm not sure how long this one went, but we're probably close to an hour or more. Yeah, lots of drama in this one. Lots of drama. The love triangle, the shield-maiden Brynhild, the lovely Princess Gudrun, and our hero Sigurd. You know, that affair going on. And then you got, you know, poor Gunnar in here. He didn't really do anything wrong either. Yeah, his mom tricked Sigurd into marrying his sister so that he could get with Brynhild. But, you know, he doesn't seem like a bad guy yet. But, yeah, Brynhild wants revenge on all of them for tricking her and for getting her to break her oath. So, yeah, we'll pick up with this story and how this is all going to end in part 4. Again, I appreciate everybody who stuck around. This is the Hoplite channel, Saga of the Volsungs Part 3. And we will see you next time for Part 4 and the conclusion of the Saga of the Volsungs and the conclusion of the Norse literature series. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. If you're liking the channel, if you're liking the series, feel free to subscribe or share it with family and friends. And we'll see you next time. Till then, take care.